Hello and welcome. My name is Meepolis, they, he, she, and today's pick is In Search of Gil Scott-Heron, The Godfather of Rap by Thomas Maucéri, Seb Piquet, and Lauren Bose. Originally published in French in 2022, it was translated by James Hogan and published by Titan Comics in English in 2023. Content notes for Kanye appearance, depiction of lynching, and references to other forms of violent racism, N-word, 9/11, smoking, and death. Keywords that came to mind reading this volume: war on drugs, culture, documentary, politics, race, and music. The summary is, quote, singer, poet, and writer considered to be the godfather of rap, Gil Scott-Heron is a myth and legend in the Afro-American music scene. Through his personal experiences, Thomas Maucéri allows us to discover the life of this genius along with other aspects of America's recent history. Gil Scott-Heron is one of the most important artists of the past 60 years and is widely credited as laying the foundations for modern hip-hop as we know it. This gorgeous graphic novel follows the author as he attempts to track down the elusive Godfather of Rap for an interview that never seems to happen, while examining his target's music, controversial life, and lasting political and cultural legacy. End quote. Looking at the writing, I think it's pretty easy to expect too much Gil Scott-Heron information. It's there, but the lens of Thomas Maucéri's experience trying to talk with Gil is thick. Despite picking this up on a bit of a whim and not being much of a music person, I did find myself getting through the book pretty easily. It also doesn't hurt that I have recently become very interested in people a bit older than myself writing about post-9/11 so-called America. We learn a lot about Thomas through the text, but otherwise I couldn't find a bio to draw from, so TLDR, Thomas is a biracial black Frenchman. He has studied film both in France and in the so-called United States, and in the so-called States, he works as a documentarian, and his goal throughout is to make a documentary about Gil Scott-Heron. Art-wise, I found Seb's style to be pretty distinct and rich enough to really dig into. The style is very expressive and has lots of active lines. The color palette is fairly limited, but is also pretty expressive. Similar to Thomas, I was not able to track down much biographical information about Seb Piquet, even in the book itself. And everyone who thinks I spend way too much time talking about creators, you'll be happy to hear I also have no idea who letterer Lauren Bose is either. Looking at the intersections of identity as we do, starting out with race, being a black man and black musician in so-called America is clearly at the heart of what Thomas is trying to examine. There's an interesting twinning of outside/inside exploration going on with a biracial black Frenchman studying black American music as they experience the way that 2000s America treats black people. Besides vivid contextual profiles of each of Gil's albums, Thomas seems interested in depicting the way that black resistance in so-called America has looked like from the Godfather of Rap days all the way up to the election of Trump. Class and disability play a bigger role here than in many books I read, honestly. Not that Thomas seemed particularly focused on analyzing through these frames, but being of a certain class and suffering from the requisite health complications, it's hard to profile Gil without talking about class and disability. Gil isn't even allowed to leave the so-called United States to perform in France, and health complications are what ultimately whisk Gil out of Thomas' fingers. There is some binary gender diversity, but neither gender or sexuality seem terribly interesting to Thomas either, which happens. Bye y'all, keep reading, and stand with striking workers. And Literally Graphic is created on land that should be given back to the traditional landholders, which in this case is, to my knowledge, the Mississaugas of the Credit First Nation, an Anishinaabe people, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy, and the Huron-Wendat Nation.